This lesson is part 1 of section 4.6, point slope form. So today our objective is to be able to graph a line using the equation in point slope form. So up until this point, what we've been doing is graphing equations in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Instead of seeing this form, we actually have something called point slope form. So it's just a new way of writing a line, and here's the equation. Now it looks really complicated. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. It looks complicated, but it's not too difficult. We're just going to pick out certain parts of this equation. Now the m right here is always going to be in front of the parentheses. M still stands for slope. Now the point that we use, since it's called point slope form, remember slope we just found, that's this part here. The point is actually the coordinate x1, y1. So it's the number that follows after the x, and it's the number that follows after the y. So let's take a look at our equation here. I know it might be confusing at first, but we're going to practice this a bunch of times. So we're going to identify what the point is and the slope is from this equation that's written in point slope form. So the easiest one to do is the slope. The slope is always the number in front of the parentheses. So that number here is 2/3. So my slope is 2/3. And then to identify the point, this one is a little trickier. You always look at the number that comes after the x first. It looks like that number is -4, but we actually use the opposite. So we're going to use a +4 for the x value. Now to get the y value, we look at the number that follows this y here. It looks like it's a -3, but instead of using -3, remember we use the opposite, so we're going to use +3. So the coordinate, the point, is 4, 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice that one more time. Let's look at example 2. It says y plus 1 is equal to -3 times x minus 2. Now remember, the slope is the easiest thing to find. The m is always going to be slope in front of the parentheses. So our slope here is -3. Now to find the x coordinate and the y coordinate, we have to look at the number that comes after the x. So this time it looks like it's -2, but instead we take the opposite, so we're going to write +2. And then for the y coordinate, we look at the number that comes after the y here. It looks like a +1, but instead we're going to write -1. We take the opposite. So that's how you pull the point and the slope from this equation that's written in point slope form. Alright, now let's practice graphing in point slope form. So this is really similar to what we've been doing before. I know in our last lesson we learned how to graph using a slope and a point. It's the same idea here, except for now we're going to give you the equation and you have to take the information from the equation. So let's identify always the point and the slope when we try to graph in point slope form. So let's do this one more time. To find the slope, we look at the number that's in front of the parentheses. So our slope here is -3. To find our point, we look at the numbers that follow the x and the y. Oops. So the number here would be +2. We take the opposite, so it's +2. And then for the y value, we take the opposite here. So we, instead of writing +1, we're going to write -1. Okay, now that we've followed step 1 here on the side, now we're ready to graph our point. So that's what we're going to start with. We're going to graph our point down here on the grid. So we've got 2, -1, so let's go right 2, down 1. There's our very first point. Now, just like before, we're going to use our slope to graph additional points. So let's take a look at our slope. Our slope is -3. Now we know that we can rewrite this as a fraction. We can rewrite that as -3/1 or as +3/-1. So let's try both directions here in order to graph more points. Let's see, if we do this first fraction, -3/1, this means I'm going to go down 3 and to the right 1. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to start at the point and we're going to go down 3 units, so 1, 2, 3, and to the right 1. There's my next point. I'll do that all over again. We're going to go down 1, 2, 3, to the right 1. Here's my next point. Do that one more time, down 1, 2, 3, and to the right 1. And there's my point here. Now I'm going to switch colors and we're going to do this other fraction here. So 3/-1 means I'm going to go up 3 and to the left 1. So from our red point here, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3 units and then to the left 1. I do that one more time. Up 1, 2, 3, to the left 1. Let's keep going. Let's go up 1, 2, 3, and to the left 1. And now I've got a lot of points here to connect. Let's erase all of our little directions right there. Oops, I got rid of the last one. There it was. And we'll draw a line that goes through those. And there we go. So we just graphed an equation in point-slope form. Remember, to graph in point-slope form, first we have to identify the point and the slope, which is what we did right here. That's the hard part. That I think is going to be what we practice a lot tomorrow. Then we start with graphing our point. So we graphed 2, -1 first. That's where we started. And then we just graphed our slope after that. So we'll practice this a lot more tomorrow. Good job. I'll see you in class.